If I'm being disrespectful, I apologize. I'm just Mayhem.
We don't appreciate Netflix enough for the amazing work they've done in the realm of documentaries. The streaming platform has been putting out some of the most provocative nonfiction films and shows year after year, and somehow, they're just getting better at it. Their recently released documentary, Unlocked, a jail experiment, perfectly exemplifies this. The utterly outrageous docuseries is one of the most unhinged streaming experiences this year. The show centers on a 6-week experiment conducted at the Pulaski County Jail in Arkansas, which sees detainees run an open prison with no locks and no officers. And the result is a crazy mad dash of a ride where nothing is off limits. In this marvelous video, we will look at one of the detainees who has captivated the viewers with his strange, convoluted story. We're talking about Mason Mayhem Abraham, the murderer convict who's one of the central figures in the implementation of this new system in the Ruthless County Prison. But before we move ahead, please like this video and subscribe to our channel. It might just be a small click for you, but for us, it means an awful lot. With that out of the way, let's dive right in, shall we? Who is Mason Mayhem Abraham? So even from the earliest moments of the series, it's evident that this experiment seeks to create a radical shift in the way prisoners are treated within most correctional facilities. The Pulaski County Regional Detention Center is a direct supervision facility that requires the deputies to stay inside the compound with the detainees. The sheriff, Higgins, later said that the idea was to create a sense of ownership among the detainees and see if it helped them in their journey toward rehabilitation. Pulaski houses around 1,200 prisoners, some of them convicted of the most heinous crimes. Higgins also revealed that interviews were conducted with the prisoners in order to find the ones who genuinely wanted help with the issues that had led them to the wrong side of the law. The most prominent among these detainees in the documentary is a man named Mason Mayhem Abraham, a murder suspect awaiting trial at Pulaski. Mason was 20 when he was found to be the prime suspect in the murder of one Broderick Bluford. The murder occurred on the evening of October 18, 2022 in Little Rock, Arkansas. Now, Little Rock is one of those regions where homicide is fairly commonplace, and there have been numerous complaints by the residents about the rising lawlessness on those shady streets. Given the sheer brutality of his crimes, Mayhem is not your usual documentary subject or protagonist, but as time goes on, we begin to see the humanity behind the suspected murderer slowly. Throughout the show, Mayhem remains a firm believer in the experiment and is shown to be pretty sure of the fact that it might work, provided that the inmates follow the rules and do not bash each other's heads in. We also learn that Mayhem has a young daughter, and most of his drive comes from the earnest desire to be reunited with his child. These nuances, as well as the fact that he's still on trial, eventually endear the young man to the audience, and we'd be lying if we told you that we don't feel a tiny bit of empathy. At many points in the show, it does seem like Mayhem was just caught in the wrong circumstances, and maybe could just be redeemed. Of course, that's for the judges to decide, but the documentary provides us with a fairly detailed look into the life of a man who would otherwise be just another prison statistic. Mayhem was detained at the Pulaski facility following his arrest to await his trial. But as we all know, legal troubles, especially those that are this serious, tend to take longer than you could ever expect. Thus, at the time of the documentary, Mayhem found himself locked in with some of the most violent and detestable men on the planet. Mayhem himself identified as crazy when we first met him and had a special penchant for chaos. Initially, he felt unwilling to face his fate, either life imprisonment or death. This was perhaps because of his tremendous attachment to his mother and daughter, as we see enough evidence of how heavy the separation bears upon him. He also claimed to be a member of the notorious gang Young Vice Lords, who are known for operating in the area. Throughout the show, Mayhem often found himself at odds with the older inmates like Randy True Story Randall because of their approaches to how the inmates conducted themselves during the experiment. Randall believed that the younger inmates were jeopardizing the experimenters' results with their misdemeanors, which could endanger the time the prisoners had out of their cells. With everyone in the unit belonging to the same hierarchy, it also became clear that Mayhem stood entirely against the idea of the older prisoners occupying leadership roles in the now self-governing prison block. This led to numerous arguments with different individuals seeking to set down new regulations, because Mayhem isn't really the kind of guy who takes orders. Despite his unhinged behavior, Mayhem has shown definite progress throughout the show. Though he firmly believes that people should be free to live their lives however they want, he soon begins to appreciate the older prisoners, like Randy, for their efforts at maintaining order. He even goes as far as to say that he has genuine respect for Randall for ensuring the prisoners always had food. By the time the experiment ended, Mayhem was quite successful at keeping up with the new regulations that had been put in place, as they allowed the inmates to enjoy their freedom without compromises. Ultimately, he found a guiding principle that truly made his life in the prison better: pursue your interests while avoiding unethical behavior. Mason Abraham's capital murder charge. To determine whether Mason deserves the harsh punishment awaiting him, we will first look at the crime he was arrested for. But be warned, the content ahead can be fairly disturbing for the faint-hearted. Mayhem is the prime suspect in a capital murder of the 32-year-old Bluford in 2022. This means that the murder involved an aggravating circumstance with prior intention, punishable by death. The state of Arkansas considers capital murder to be a crime that is premeditated or committed in the course of a violent felony. So yeah, Mason was in pretty hot waters when we first saw him at the beginning of the 8-episode docuseries. Late evening on October 18, the police heard of a shooting on the 1400 block of Leander Drive in Little Rock. The victim, Broderick Bluford, was immediately rushed to the hospital where he soon passed away. In the ensuing investigation, the police zeroed in on Mayhem and his friend, Farrah McCoy, for the crime. 6 days later, the duo was arrested, and in addition to the capital murder, they were also charged with unlawful discharge of a weapon from an automobile. To add to the overall morbidity and dread, the Bluford murder was also noted as being the 67th homicide in 2022. The aftermath. Where is he today? The events on the show clearly show that Mayhem has the capacity to improve, so it's only natural to wonder what happened to him next. After his stint on the hit Netflix series, Mayhem has not had much public communication, but it is certain that he's still a resident of the Pulaski County Detention Facility. He's still awaiting trial for his role in the murder of Bluford, and will likely remain at the center until he is either convicted or acquitted. Though we can't comment on how guilty he really is, that's a job for the authorities. It's still evident that the man can learn. Here's to hoping that he sees the error of his ways. We're sure that we will soon hear from the crazy one soon, for better or worse, as the courts decide his case. But yeah, if he does manage to make it out, the reunion between Mayhem and his daughter is bound to be a real tearjerker. More than anything, our heart goes out to Broderick Bluford and his family, and we're sure that justice will prevail. Marvelous verdict. Mayhem is definitely one of the most complicated individuals we've ever encountered on our screens. Though a murder suspect, one can't help but like the guy. Perhaps it's his steadfast belief in freedom that we find relatable, or maybe his struggling relationship with his daughter that makes the prisoner seem human. Though the authorities in the prison system were rightfully angry to learn of this experiment, which Sheriff Higgins conducted on his own with prior information, we can't deny that it has its advantages. It's probably one of the few pieces of work that take us to the fringes of society and evoke the feeling of what life in prison might be like. This moving journey might get crazy at times, but it never lets us forget that at the center of all the fistfights and arguments, there are real people like Mayhem, who aren't really that different from the rest of us. The show is receiving rave reviews from audiences, and we genuinely can't recommend it enough. That's it for today, but let us know what facet of the show you want us to cover next in the comments below. Also, don't forget to hit the subscribe button to stay updated with all of our marvelous content. So long, dear viewers, we'll see you all in the next one.